triggers were clouds. When they float into our life, when we're anxiously attached, it's like every cloud is just on us. We don't even know it's a cloud. We just think it's fog because it's literally all around us all of the time and you can't see anything. It's really hard.
A lot of anxiously attached men are so sold on the concept that they have no leverage in this world, right? There's still that 1-year-old baby in the crib crying, hoping someone will pick them up. They're hoping someone will make them feel better, and then telling themselves that story, not to demonize anybody, but telling themselves that story of there's nothing I can do anyway. It excuses themselves from facing their fears because they feel there's no hope.
Why is therapy failing so many anxious people?
Humor is one of the very best ways to teach somebody about their own attachment style so that they can laugh, they can relax, and they can take some hard truth. Nobody has a more humorous Instagram based around attachment than Trevor Hansen. I've enjoyed a lot of his material. If you've ever seen his Day in the Life of an Avoidant Man, I highly recommend checking it out. Today, Trevor's here to talk with us about the realities of living with anxious attachment, how you can navigate around it, and even how you can become secure. Trevor, welcome to the show.
So Trevor, I'm really curious. I actually got introduced to your content from this clip where you're just running away from your girlfriend, showing the day in the life of an avoidant man. It's really funny. I was just killing myself laughing. How did you come to that? Were you avoidant or were you the anxious one?
You know, it's actually funny because our roles are not what you see in the clip. My wife, Elise, she's definitely leaning more on the avoidance side. And I'm definitely like a recovered, anxiously attached human, right? And I guess recovering, like we're always kind of working on things. But yeah, it's actually reversed. But typically we find that in a lot of the relationships with people that we work with, it is the way that the man's a little bit more avoidant and the female's a little bit more pursuant. And it's kind of cool. Like when we shoot those clips, we get a little empathy for each other because we're taking on the opposite role. So in an attempt to be maybe a little bit more relatable, we kind of reverse our attachment styles when playing out funny scenarios like that.
Does it actually help you as you step into her shoes and then she steps into yours? What does that do to you?
Yeah, I think it's kind of, I don't know. I think it's kind of cool. Like we draw obviously a lot of inspiration from the work that we actually do with like clients and the people that I work with. But it's interesting. I think it's more of when we're actually filming it, I don't know if it's technically like a very, I don't know, like empathetic or emotional experience because you're just kind of focused on saying the words and things like that. But in writing this content, I think that's where a lot of the empathetic view comes from, where you're actually having to think deeply about like, oh, what does the other person feel or what do they think? And that I think is always a good exercise for anybody, right? Because I think we tell ourselves a story in our head as far as how the other person perceives us or how they feel or what they're thinking. And usually that story is like way more full of catastrophic things and danger and sharp objects than reality. And so it's definitely helpful to slow that down and take that empathetic view.
Yeah, I've never really seen that type of content be done before in this space, at least, which is really funny, and that's actually great too because it just makes you safely experience something that most people are deeply traumatized by. But there's also a thing that Adam works on a lot, which is the attachment pattern space. So I'm kind of curious, how does that help you interrupt like an attachment pattern, seeing something like that?
Oh my goodness. As I was watching that clip just this morning, again, because I love that clip, I was thinking how easy it would probably be for an avoidant man to sit down and watch that and how he would probably bristle at the beginning and have that stiff face. But as it goes on, it's just so delightful. It's hard not to laugh at himself probably a little bit, especially because it's so obviously overblown. It makes a caricature of it. I think that if we can use a lot more humor like that, people can probably accept some more difficult pieces of themselves. One thing I really enjoyed, you had another clip where it must have been your wife. You guys walk in the house together, you're a new dating couple, and you go, whoa, what's that? And it's her sitting in the corner, but it's the anxious part of herself that activates in a relationship. And she starts throwing eggshells on the floor and walking on them and begging for attention. And I have to imagine you guys had fun doing that too. But again, that humor, you can deliver hard-hitting truths to anxiously attached people that they otherwise would feel wounded by.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, and that's the thing. It's like we always try to, as I create stuff like that. I know there's like a two-edged sword. Some might be like offended, like, oh, you're making fun of me. But in reality, like these are patterns that we see in ourselves, first of all. So it's like, no, 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 I'm part of the camp. Don't worry. I'm not saying I'm like above you and looking down on you and laughing. But also it's that ability to laugh at something like that is difficult, that is hard, that can feel really traumatic and where we get stuck in our greatest pain. And if we can find like some sort of humor in that same place, that's incredibly relieving, right? Like we see that in some of like we do like community type work where people are getting together and they're talking about times when they maybe got like triggered or they did something over the weekend that like they're kind of embarrassed about, and we're just kind of laughing and having a good time together chatting about it, like we're just kind of trading some war stories. And it makes it so there's a lot less, I think, like shame around it when we can find some humor in it.
Well, for sure, the biggest element of attachment issues is your fear. What am I afraid of? How afraid am I? And what is that fear stopping me from doing? If we can go the opposite
Right.
direction and soothe that fear with the release of laughter, and especially shared laughter, if we can bond with other people through that, it removes that fear obstacle. So then we can actually tackle the challenge that we're experiencing. That's usually the birth of a lot of hope for people, is just finding a way to reduce the fear.
Mm. And how did you come to this? What's your attachment story? Because you sound like you have one.
Yeah, totally. So I I never ever thought that I was going to be in this field or industry or anything like that. um I was I think I became aware of I didn't even know it was called attachment when I was like becoming aware of it, but I started becoming aware of it when I got like serious about dating. I'm like in college, looking to find somebody. And I was living in Hawaii. I live there now again, but I was living in Hawaii and I was living with a bunch of friends, and I was always like struggling to feel confident and struggling in dating and always wondering like, why are these girls not interested in me? Like, what's going on? Like, it just, I don't know. Like, I feel like I'm a half decent guy. Like maybe there's some attractive traits here. And it was like this big puzzle to me. And there was a lot of urgency behind it. Fast forward, I moved for a corporate career. I started working for Tesla, living in Reno, Nevada. And in Reno, Nevada, I moved into an apartment where I was all alone. I was working a lot. It was just like a big culture shock as far as even like the dating pool and the opportunities there. I felt like there was just no real good opportunity. So I was living there, and there was some difficulties there, and the attachment was, the anxiousness was just alive, right? All the scary stories in my head. I'm never gonna find anybody. This isn't the place for me. I'm never gonna find love, this, that, and the other. I eventually move uh to where I'm originally from, which is Utah, and again start dating with that anxiety. And I'm pushing girls away, and they're not, they're feeling the maybe over clingy, over excited pressure and backing up from me, and me still scratching my head going, why? And their answer is just like, oh, I'm just not interested, or there was no answer at all, the ghosting, and then they just blow away like a tumbleweed, and I'm left there going like, I'm in the desert of singleness. Like, how can I ever do this? And the more that would happen, the more anxious I would get. And then eventually I got into a relationship with somebody who was um, probably even more anxious and unhealthy in a lot of ways than I was. And you can imagine that that creates a lot of chaos. And the chaos ended in um, a lot more self doubt, a lot more hurt. But I held on to that relationship like I was riding a bull, because I didn't really believe that I could find anything better, that I was maybe worth anything better. And so I stayed and I stayed and I stayed until I emotionally was just trampled. And coming out of that, I was like, okay, well, I broke off that relationship, and it was actually an engagement. We were planning on getting married. And so that vision that I longed for blew up in my face. And then along with that, I broke my jaw in like a skiing accident, got life flighted out of Solitude Mountain Resort within like the same month. And my corporate career at Tesla ended because they did giant layoffs like across the country and closed all sorts of service centers and stores and delivery centers and other things because for like a change in approach. And so I had no job, no job and no job, I guess I could say. And I really didn't, and I didn't have a relationship. And so I went to therapy for the first time, and I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. And there's a lot of interesting pieces here. And I think I really like this. And maybe I mean, I don't have a job. Maybe I could try to do some of this. So I went back and got a master's of marriage and family therapy. I got licensed as a therapist, started practicing that way. And yeah, that's kind of what led me to that point. Things have changed a little bit since then. I don't necessarily do therapy now, but that's kind of the full arcing story of in a very, very tight, tight nutshell.
Wow. I'm really curious because we actually don't get a lot of men who were anxious in the past on the show. They tend to be a little bit more shy and reserved. So I'm glad you're here. What was your experience like dating as an anxious man?
Oh man. Uh Anxious guys, what they're gonna experience is that they they don't give what I call like safety cues. Safety cues come from confidence. If you think about, and it's maybe an overused analogy because you get the like the alpha bro hardcore guys on the internet using this analogy, but I'm going to use it anyway, at risk of looking like an alpha bro. But the lead wolf in a pack, or the alpha wolf, he's the guy you want to look to for safety and security. If he's scared, everybody else is scared. Nobody feels very good hanging out in his pack if he's looking over his shoulder, if he's freaked out, if he's scared. But if that guy is confident and he's calm and he's precise, and even just his body language, the others in the pack are going to know and going to notice. And it's kind of a similar experience. There's those subconscious cues that, are almost like subconscious empathy that turns on, where we can pick up on another person. You might call it energy, whatever you want to call it. And when me or other guys I work with go on dates, it's that fear of, can I impress you? Are you going to think that I'm enough? I'm going to overdo it. I'm going to say yes to everything. I'm going to tell you that I like the same things that you like. And maybe I do, maybe I don't. I'm going to be sitting on the edge of my seat, being so overly engaged to the point where it's not actually like connecting and friendly. It is anxiety provoking. And it might be low grade anxiety in the other person, but it's uncomfortable. It's definitely high grade anxiety for me, sitting there like, oh, I got to make this work, putting on pressure. And it also looked like maybe asking for commitment too early. And it's like, whoa, bro, like we just met, like chill out. It looked like playing out, kind of like fantasies in my head too early of like long term relationship, like marriage and all that other stuff. It looked like trying to just do too much on dates. I was telling people in my group the other day, I was like, man, first dates, when I became more secure, they were short. I was like, we meet up somewhere public, you drive your own car. That way, if you don't want to hang out with me, you can leave. Like, I'm not picking you up. It's going to be maybe like an hour and a half, and we're going to hang out. We're just going to get a little sample, little Costco sample. If you like it, buy the whole box. If you don't like it, go home. That's great. Same for me. I don't know if I'm going to like you or not. Whereas before it's like marathon dates. I'm like, I'm just want to impress, and they're going to be long, and I'm going to pick her up, and so much trying to control and keep the other person close. And nobody likes that. And so guys in that situation get a lot of ghosting, just girls not responding because maybe they're a little bit avoidant to the conflict of saying anything. And there's also just so much competition when it comes to like men seeking women's attention, a lot more than the opposite direction. And so a lot of ghosting, a lot of just wondering why, what's wrong with me? Am I just not good looking enough? Do I not have this enough? You start going through the list of things that you think these women care about, but in reality, at the end of the day, it's no, you just don't provide that safe feeling for
Mm.
them. Those cues of safety, you create this low grade anxiety, and it's not very desirable. So, yeah, that's kind of what it was like for way, it was painful, but I'm glad I went through it because I learned a lot.
I get asked all the time, what is my attachment style? What is my attachment style? What is my attachment style? So I have finally launched the attachment assessment. This is not a short quiz that just spits out an answer after 3 seconds. This is a thorough, in-depth, science-backed assessment. Check it out on my website, adamlanesmith.com, and learn your attachment style, the severity of what you're dealing with, and some next steps you can take right now to build very secure attachment.
I'm curious, Adam, you're a bit of a neurobiology savant, I would call this. low grade anxiety that especially women sense in men, this lack of safety, like the energy, exactly as you describe it. I hear everybody talk about the energy. Nobody can explain what it is. What is the biology behind that?
Well, it's a few things. So, Trevor, you hinted at the leader of an animal pack. We could look at the head male in a chimpanzee troop or gorilla troop. Same thing. It's a few things. One is the pheromones you send off, just the
Mhm.
stress signal. There's a whole theory behind pheromones is that we can smell it, and it's a danger signal that says there is danger in our environment. We are about to get hurt, and it's you stinking through your stress sweat, just filling your shirt with it. And she says, what is that smell? She might not even know it consciously, but she can smell it. It's his body language, his eyes, his pupils dilating, his nostrils flaring. It's also a sense that I have no safety in your environment and around you because you are unpredictable. Women really desire predictability on a safe level so that they can then explore spontaneous things that are safe. Safe spontaneity is different from unsafe spontaneity. So having that safety and being able to say, this man is emotionally disciplined. I am safe in the perimeter that he's able to draw, right, is very crucial. Otherwise, if he's not drawing a perimeter, she has to step into that masculine stance and then she has to draw the perimeter. She has to draw boundaries against external threats. She has to protect and define the relationship. She has to do so many things. It's if a man's in that anxious mode, he's really making her do his job. That's really what she'll see. And that's okay if they're just going to hang out and watch movies, but if they're going to build a family together, it's not sustainable for her.
There's kind of a bit of a tricky landscape here too, is that you don't want to just like play hard to get, for example, right? Just like not giving attention and playing games and being manipulative in that sense. However, there is some truth in things that take effort to obtain are things that are desirable. Everything in the world that takes effort to obtain, whether it's you're freaking ripped and you're looking awesome because you've been going to the gym, or you've got a nice big fat income, or whatever it is that you've got, like that takes significant effort to obtain. And that's just, I think that's almost like a universal principle. And so if a person is overly anxious, they're going to be overly available, overly yes man, yes man, yes man. And it just it just doesn't line up with that pattern, that like the things that are difficult to obtain on some level. And I'm not saying, again, play hard to get, don't text them back, do all that, don't do that. But it's the safety and the security and knowing I have my own life. Like I've got other commitments. I'm not going to drop everything for you. I'm going to hold boundaries. I'm going to, sometimes say, oh, hey, I can't this weekend because I'm hanging out with my friends, while keeping the door open that says, but next weekend, like I'd love to do something, right? It's that little bit of challenge, the little bit of pursuit that I think is also just wired into us. It's a more enjoyable experience when there's a bit of a pursuit.
Well, and if you signal that you have no value, women will believe you.
Mm.
If you signal that you have overwhelming value, most women will believe you. And secure women will then verify that you have value. Insecure women will then begin competing immediately for the value you're pretending to offer. But that's really what it is. So don't pretend you have value if you can't back it up for certain. But they'll believe what you signal.
Yep. I'm curious, Trevor, because this is something we hear from anxious men a fair amount, especially as I come into Adam's coaching. They say it is so unfair for women to have this expectation of me. What more do you want? Is a very common beginning for the conversations that we help them start. And the reason why is they say, hey, I got everything, right? I work out enough, maybe I'm not like the most jack guy in the room, but I take care of myself. I have a job. And I'm sure like, oh, you're working at Tesla. That's pretty up there. That's very cool. And then, when you end up in these situations with women, when they just say, you know what, I just don't feel safe with you, and they can't explain why.
Mm.
How do you deal with that level of, well, disappointment maybe, or just resentment
As far as like on the male side, like
on the male
hearing something
side?
like that, like
Yeah,
how do you deal with that from,
common complaint.
yeah. Well, that's, there's, it's just where someone is on their journey, right? If you're listening to a show like this, you're most likely at least moving from a place where maybe previously a man could be in a victim type place there, being angry, being resentful, saying that women have too high of a standard, all of that stuff. That's kind of the victim type mindset, right? And most likely, if you're listening to something like this, you've either turned fully away from that and you're more into the victor, the hero, the conquering, the accountable mindset, or you're kind of starting to make that transition. You're like, okay, I'm trying to do that. I'm working through it. And so I think that's a big piece of it, is also realizing I mean, rarely I think will you get that clear of feedback as far as like, hey, I don't feel safe and this and that. Um, and I think that can build a lot of resentment because you're just unclear as to why, and you're just feeling rejected and it feels arbitrary and there's no path forward. But that's why we have conversations like this, to make it explicit, because not everybody's going to share those things and those feelings. But in private, in conversations like coaching and therapy settings where we can speak with individuals privately, that's where we discover this information. Then we present it here on platforms like this so that people can understand, like, oh my gosh, it's about safety. And I think seeing it as like this great opportunity, not only just, to win the girl, like, sure, that's cool, but this opportunity just to become, and this sounds way too, I don't know, take it for what it is, just like become the man, like become the person. We talk about in the Secure Self Club, like our group, we're building security. We talk about this idea of the hero's journey, and the hero takes ownership, takes accountability. They're facing darkness with purpose. They're not a victim to their circumstances, even if they've truly been victimized at one point in their story. They then face the darkness with this energy of saying, no, like, I'm learning, I'm becoming, and I'm also helping somebody new. And for me, that's exciting. I'm like, man, forget about resentment. That just doesn't feel very good. Why don't you, even if it's not true, just think of it this way, because it's more efficient. It just feels better to believe this hopeful narrative that I can learn from this and
Mhm.
become the kind of guy who's safe.
Yeah, a lot of anxiously attached men are they're so sold on the concept that they have no leverage in this world, right? They're still that 1-year-old baby in the crib crying, hoping someone will pick them up. They're hoping someone will make them feel better, and then telling themselves that story. Not to demonize anybody, but telling themselves that story of there's nothing I can do anyway. It excuses themselves from facing their fears because they feel there's no hope. The pathway to working on that most of the time, it doesn't help to yell at these men or call them names. Like a lot of the red pill circles will insult them and call them all kinds of terrible things. Uh, I mean, they've been called horrible things their whole life. That's why they're anxiously attached. It doesn't work. It's showing them that they have power. They have not domineering power, but they have power over their own life. They have power over their circumstances. They have power to change. That's so crucial.
Yeah. There's one thing that I've noticed too. It seems like we've completely lost the value of a calm, regulated nervous system. Like that's just not a cool thing to have, right? We don't portray that as desirable anymore almost anywhere. But at the same time, this sounds like that's the missing link in all of our dating culture, especially
Yeah.
for anxiously attached men, but also for women, right? Where is it shown that it's good to show up and be calm, but also interesting, also have boundaries and everything else?
That's a very good point. Yeah, when you ask women what they want, when I ask women what they want, I'm a relationship expert. So then they tell me, well, a man who's emotionally disciplined and right, he's dependable and reliable. But if the average man on the street asks a woman, what do you want? She might like start defaulting to the checklist, like look like this, have this kind of a job, do and that's where a lot of guys lose hope because they think women only care about superficial trappings. But when I talk to women one on one, no, it's emotional discipline, understanding, calm, right, safety, and that's where I think the disconnect is because it's not flashy to be calm,
No.
but that's what all women really are seeking, healthy women. I know that a lot of the people watching this show right now have had attachment issues for their entire life. That's why I want to invite every single one of you to check out my attachment repair program. It just might be the jump that you need to go from insecurely attached and lonely and frustrated to fully secure, connected, and bonded in a great relationship like nothing you've ever felt before. Check out my website, adamlanesmith.com, for the attachment repair program.
If we flip the script, I think about, there's this girl that we recently did a little like testimonial video with her, and when I was talking with her about her experience, and she was saying, she's like, since becoming more secure, she says, I just have way more men who are interested in me. She says, I don't feel like I'm doing anything different. I didn't get a new job. I'm not more physically attractive. She's like, I'm the same person. Um, and she's like, I just have way more men seeking my attention. And I think it just goes down to these subconscious cues that, like, we find safety in a regulated nervous system. we find connection in that place, because that's the thing at our core that we need from the beginning. We know, like, the whole attachment theory is that, in a sense, this is like one version of it, I guess, is that, the people that we introduce ourselves to at the very beginning of life, mom and dad, if they have that regulated nervous system, if they have that consistency, if they feel calm, which are all, I guess, what a securely attached individual would look like anyway, but that provides us with that feeling of safety, the ability to connect. And it's the same thing. We just fast forwarded a few years. And now, instead of mom and dad being the people that we're interfacing with, it's, boyfriend or girlfriend, whoever it is. And if they, slash, if we have that calmness, that regulated nervous system, we're consistent, we're open while also boundaried so that it feels kind of contained and safe to be part of that relationship. Again, it establishes connection. It's kind of like this recipe, just like throw in all that stuff and everybody starts feeling better, and it's okay to be there.
There's something that you said in your story that really caught my eye. I even wrote it down. You said that you had these long dates, marathon dates, and you were trying to control what? What are we trying to control there through this giant long date?
Yeah, yeah, right. So I don't think I or many others would consciously be able to list the things they're trying to control or even realize they're trying to control it. But when we're in our anxious place, we try to control everything on the outside of us because we don't feel safe on the inside of us, right? And so it looks like, if I'm on a marathon date, number one, maybe I'm trying to force the view of me being impressive. I've got a lot of time. I can do a lot of things. I can take you on this really cool, day trip up to this lake or like whatever it is, right? And so, I'm trying to force your perception of me into what I hope it will become, what I think you will believe is attractive. That's one. I think also just forcing some sort of like connection, I guess. And it's weird to even call it that way, because just being in the presence of somebody else isn't necessarily connection, but it's that idea of like, oh, I just get to be around you more, right? I get that soothing of having a person with me, a partner. And the more you're with me, the more it feels like you want to be with me, whether you do or not. And most people are pretty nice. And so when they're in a date like that, right? Let's say it's like a long date. I took this girl on like a really long, like, paddleboarding date one time. It was like so long. Um, for her sake, I think she was pretty anxiously attached too, so I think we were both really enjoying it, but it didn't work out. But I'm thinking, man, whether they like it or not, most people are going to be pretty nice. They're going to be fairly, kind during that experience, and so the anxiously attached might get positive signals the whole time. Oh, this is great. I love this. I'm with them. Oh my goodness. Yeah, a false positive. And then they're confused as can be when the ghosting happens, or the no, I'm not interested happens, or whatever happens next. It's just so earth shattering. And so I think it's really just trying to force connection, control the outcome, control the other person's perception of us. That's what it's about when you're doing things like, for example, the marathon date. But this is one example of something you can do to kind of control the outcome.
Mhm.
There's an infinite list, obviously.
Yeah, I agree with that. We know, for example, that the anxiously attached person, their brain is addicted to two things. One is oxytocin release, the sense of belonging, the sense of that connection, force the connection. So they're craving the release of that oxytocin hormone. They don't know how to instigate it themselves, right? They learned as a child that someone else has to release it for them. So they're craving somebody to release that oxytocin. And that's paired with dopamine, which creates that intense, almost gambling addiction of, if I push enough buttons, I will hit the button that gives me the dopamine and the oxytocin, and I'll feel good. So you have that intermittent reinforcement and that gambling cycle. And then they're on dates like that, number one, desperately trying to get that release. And the purpose of the date is to
Mm.
secure long-term resources for more of that hit. So I'm going to get the release on the date and be approved of and feel good and safe. And then I will convince you to stay with me for the rest of my life, stimulating the release of more. And that's really what an anxious person's seeking in a relationship. They're not even seeking, who are you? Are we a good fit? Do I like you as a person? Do you actually like me as a person? It's, will you stay with me and make me feel safe and belonging forever? And whatever I can give you in return, will that keep you long enough? That's the anxious
Nice.
person. So it's a biochemical transaction, unfortunately.
Totally. Totally. I relate to that so much. Like I remember even like, post dates, it felt really good on the date, felt really good. And then almost immediately you're kind of on to the next overthinking. Oh, when are they going to send me that post date text telling me that they had a good time? Are they going to send it? Like wondering, right? Are they going to send that text? Do I get the confirmation that they liked it? Are they going to say in that text that they'd love to do it again? Right? It's like always the scheming, the planning, the thinking around, okay, how do I get my next fix?
Yes.
Essentially,
So
I've definitely made that amount.
I want to get a hit and I want to secure a source. Those are the two things that anxious people are thinking in that moment. And that's not to dehumanize them. They also do want love. They want intimate, but biochemically, the fear has boiled their mating process down to those two features. And that's why they tend to select partners, unfortunately, who are going to supply them with a drug and then pull away. They tend to connect to avoidant people.
I was gonna say, so basically they're building like an oxytocin slot machine, right? You just want to
Yes.
come in and pull the lever enough times, and
Yes.
you also just want to kind of break it down so that you just get better at it.
Yes. And your whole life, your nervous system is designed to give you enough quarters to keep feeding the slot machine. So that's why their nervous system is dysregulated, because they don't bother regulating it. They don't even know how. They get regulation when the slot machine pays out. They get enough to regulate for a little bit, but only because the other person's stimulating them.
So there's another thing I want to ask you about therapy, right? So you went to therapy, but you didn't stay in therapy. Like, what happened?
So, I mean, I went to therapy myself, and it was awesome, and I loved it. And I think through that process, combined with a lot of other of my own like exploration and resources and groups and things like that, um, I I found, well, mine is kind of a mixed bag, right? Like, so I was in therapy. I think part of also the you wouldn't necessarily think of this as like a anxiously attached, I guess, symptom, if you call it, but I had some struggles with pornography too. It's that pseudo connection that's not even real, right? And so I was going to like group for that, and that was like really helpful. And I started combining like all these resources, and I, like I said, I started practicing as a therapist, but I continued to hear certain complaints about the therapy process itself. Especially as people were kind of coming in, like the intake process, where they're like, okay, you've been to therapy before, like what happened? Why'd you stop? Why did you switch? Like, why are you coming to me? Kind of a thing. And I would hear kind of the same things over and over again. And I was like, oh wow, like maybe we should change like the way we do this a little bit. And one of them was just people would come in saying, I feel like I go in and I talk about my week, like, and we just kind of recap what happened. But there's no like structure, there's no plan. Like, I want to become a secure person, but it doesn't seem like that's their goal. Their goal is just to chat with me about my week and validate me a little and give me a little reframe and send me on my way. And then in between times, I'm like, what's the steps? Like, what do I do next? How do I go? And so I was like, oh, okay. Like, what if we make that transparent? And if we have like a process and a plan that's a little bit more actionable? And so that's like, for example, one little thing that I started to adjust. And there was enough adjustments that it became a whole lot more it became such a different approach than like what I was doing in therapy originally, that now I offer coaching. So it's not a clinical focus. It's not those kind of things. It's more action oriented, because I feel like that's also one of the complaints I hear is like, I just want to do something to feel better. Like, give me something tangible. I don't think I want to talk about, my childhood for this 700th time,
Sure.
to another person. So
So I'm
yeah.
curious then, like just even in just a short summary, why is therapy failing so many anxious people?
Well, I'll give you four reasons why. Number one, the structure thing. And here's the thing: as I do this, I want to say I'm not like throwing therapy out the window and saying that it's not helpful. It definitely has its uses. But for those who feel like it's failing them, this is what they tell me. Number one, I don't have a plan. I don't have a structure. We kind of talked about that. Number two is that they feel like they're getting information, but not a transformation. It's a head change, not a heart change. So they're learning things, they're gaining awareness, but that awareness isn't translating into, oh, I actually feel different about myself. So what they're missing is what I call emotional experiences that move that needle towards the feeling heart change. The third one, you're not going to get the third one if you don't have the first two, structure and emotional experiences. repetition is the next one that people talk about. They're like, I go home, I don't really know what to do. Like maybe we did an activity in therapy and it was helpful, but how do I recreate that? How do I translate that into like a skill that I can exercise on my own? Like give me the keys to the gym. I don't want to just go in with my personal trainer. I want the keys. I want to be able to do it on my own. And then the last one is one that I realized from like groups when I was doing some addiction recovery work with myself and whatnot. It's just connection, like being able to connect in the presence of others. I mean, that's how the attachment styles are formed, is in the presence of others. And obviously it's not the same exact relationships, and it's not going to be quite as powerful as those formative years, and there's biology in that. But man, when you go into a setting where everybody in the room is like, yeah, I have an anxious attachment too, and yeah, I'm working on it, and um, you can show up as yourself. You don't have to people please. You don't have to edit who you are in order to be enough here. Like, I'm just going to love the heck out of you. There's a whole community to do that. And they keep you motivated. Man, that in itself is one of those emotional experiences that we were talking about earlier, where you're just like, man, I feel so seen, safe, and held, and I'm being myself. And maybe this is the first place where I've ever been able to do that. And so I think those are the four things. And most people don't realize that that's what they're missing. Like when we start chatting with them, we kind of, I guess, reveal that through the conversation. It's like, you don't have structure, you don't have repetition, emotional experiences, and community. And maybe we need those four things, and it'll start working better, and it proves that it does.
How about you, Adam? I got two former therapists here. How did therapy fail you?
Sure. So, Trevor, for context, I was a licensed marriage and family therapist for years as well, and I left the field for a couple of reasons. One, I found the same thing. People were coming to me; they were frustrated. I was their third or fourth or fifth therapist, and they had not found the structure they needed. They wanted answers, and it was against insurance policies to give people directive help because then you're liable for whatever goes wrong. Right. Yeah. So your person comes to you and pays you to figure out what to do wrong. And insurance says if you do that, we will not cover you and you will be sued. So that was a big piece of it. Another was just that people didn't even know what to expect. So they'd walk in and just sit there and stare at you. And if the therapist wasn't trained appropriately, the therapist would just start asking them generic questions about their week. And then the therapist would turn into a friend. The most expensive friend you have is what the therapist would become. And the last piece, and this was a big one, was that people would walk in and beg for how to fix the problems. And the therapist would default back to diagnoses and medications and referring to, well, you're not getting better, so let's send you to a psychiatrist and put you on a sixth medication. Surely one of these antidepressants will make you happy. And you're stressed out and your nervous system's dysregulated. Well, man, we have meds for that. Why don't we put you on that? Meanwhile, come back next week and talk to me for the fifth year in a row. And so I started branching out, and I wanted to be more directive and coach as well. My licensing board told me I wasn't allowed to coach. And so I terminated my license, and all I do is coach
And here
because
we
I
are.
love it so much. Right. So, and most of my team that we've put together, our team of coaches ourselves are usually therapists with the same story of I wanted to help people and my board wouldn't let me. So here I am. And there is value in therapy when we're treating diagnoses, specific diagnoses. You are injured, you go to a person who helps you fix that injury, you walk out. But what we're talking about here is a life shift into a higher quality of life. When Michael Jordan wants to become the best basketball player in the planet, he doesn't go to a physical therapist. He goes to a coach who trains him on how to hit objectives, goals, and targets he can set, how to move his feet, his hands, how to shift, ways he's never known. You go to a coach to train you to break your records and achieve your targets. That's the difference here.
It's
That's a great
interesting.
analogy. I love that.
Yeah, it's interesting for us because we have a coaching practice. Like, I think we're almost about 2,000 now successful cases, and the story that we get from anxious people coming in is it hurts, right? It hurts because I expose myself, I say all these things, and there's nothing, and I just keep doing it again and again and again, trusting this is going to help, and it doesn't help. It just doesn't help, and it's almost like a betrayal. This is on the anxious side. And the avoidance come in, and it's actually my experience because I went to therapy for 2 sessions in my life. I was, just going through my first marriage, and my ex-wife was like, we were having some problems. It seemed like you're getting locked up about some stuff. You should go to some therapy. And I go, okay, I'll give it a shot. And then, I showed up, Then I told personal story, and my therapist looked at me. She said, "Oh, Andre, I'm so sorry." I go, "Okay." She said, "Well, then time's up though, so see you next time." I'm like, "Okay, maybe I missed something." I said, "You know what? Maybe I missed something." And then I came back the second time, and we went through a similar story that was kind of related, and then it ended with, "Andre, I'm so sorry." I go, "That's it? Now what do I do with this?
Yeah.
This utterly
Yeah.
useless." Maybe an avoidant thing to say, but I go like, "Your story is utterly useless to me in any way, shape, or form. You inconsequential person who I pay $150 for the last 50 minutes. If I want to do this, I do it at home. Staring at the mirror with a bottle of vodka would be healthier, cheaper." So, anyways, I never came back. But we could get this story all the time that there is no point and there's no outcome. It's just a little fix, right? It just doesn't go anywhere. So I think what you guys are doing is way better, personally.
Well, it's just more fun too, because it's like you just it's so rewarding to work with individuals when they're actually making progress,
Right.
right? Like when they're like moving forward in a meaningful way. It's so exciting. And to be part of that, honestly, I love it.
Mm.
Like like I was saying, we every once in a while when people volunteer to do it, we'll record like a little testimony on like I watch them and I cry like every time. I just love the people that I get to work with. And I love to see their stories and their transformation. And I found it to be much more possible with a much more structured and directive approach,
Yes.
like we're talking about here today.
Here's a question then. How long does it take for somebody who's anxious to go to secure?
That's a funny question because like what is secure, right? Like this it's a spectrum. And there's a level of security that a person is pretty satisfied with. Right? Is that 100% secure all the time? No. Am I 100% secure all the time? No. I talk about this analogy. It's like a cloud in the sky. Like if triggers were clouds, when they float into our life, when we're anxiously attached, it's like every cloud is just on us. We don't even know it's a cloud. We just think it's fog because it's literally all around us all of the time and you can't see anything and it's really hard. Then as you become more secure, the clouds, they start to go up a little and you start to recognize, oh, whoa, that's a cloud. It's still kind of annoying, still blocking the sunlight a little bit. I don't like that cloud. Maybe I can move it higher, right? And then eventually there's not as many clouds that come into your life. There's not as many triggers. And when they do come, they're a lot further away. You're like, oh, there it is. It's annoying. I feel it. I don't like it. I'll give you an example. Just a few months ago, well, that's actually not true. It's about a year ago. We're making this new group of friends because we moved and they start pulling out the volleyball net. And if there's anything that is my kryptonite is volleyball. I hate volleyball. I suck at it. And the narrative in my head forever has been associated with when I'm bad at physical sports, I'm not good enough, right? I'm not accepted. And this is friend attachment, not like romantic attachment, but it's like the idea of, do I have a place here? And I felt the old fear come up. I had a cloud float in, essentially. And I'm like, oh, I feel that. I don't love that, but I also know that I'm okay. And I'm going to go play volleyball right now. So I didn't let it stop me from accessing the opportunity for connection, which is playing the game. And other times I'm like, no, I just don't really want to play because I don't like it. And I'm cool with that too, right? That's another version of dealing with a cloud. And so to say like there will be no clouds ever, no. But what I have found is that with the right pieces, within about a 4-month period of time, most of the people that we work with will say, I'm as secure as I've ever been. I am very happy with where I've gotten. And then I want to fill them in with a lot of resources, things to maintain and to grow that. But like an intensive period where we're really working in the weeds for about 4 months is what we found. Our program is 4 months. It's built around that timeline, where we help people move to that place where they're like, oh yeah, I'm feeling very satisfied in my security by this point.
I want to echo this because I agree. We have my program is built for the first 3 months is break the insecure attachment patterns that have kept you unhappy. But after that, the additional 3 months for the full 6-month program is now let's build you the patterns that make you fulfilled and content. Let's show you how to be fully secure. So we and I are just meeting, but I want to tell you that I've been updating the field of attachment theory because I have found that it's not really satisfying people's needs anymore to have secure and then say, I will never be that, right? Anxious people say, I will never be good enough to call myself secure. I am never good enough. So I had to split every attachment style into 2 subtypes. And I even split secure. Secure is you can grow up fully secure. And if you want to call yourself secure, there's secure. But the other piece that a lot of people were trying to go to was this idea of earned secure, which if you give an anxious person an earned title, you have to earn secure. No, like they're going to become obsessed with that. So I've called it remade secure. I have actively remade my attachment into secure attachment. This only requires, I tell people, maybe 80%. The feelings can be there. You can have, as you said beautifully, the clouds can drift in. You can have the temptation. You can have the thought. How fast do you turn around from that thought back to reality and say, oh, there it is? And what do you choose to actually do? Your actions, your speed and your actions are what determine if you are remade secure. If you can turn it around and choose something secure, or if you can correct yourself even after the fact, you are still remade secure. Good enough. Don't worry about, I'm not good enough to call myself secure yet. That's such a painful thing for anxious people. They will never let themselves be secure if we don't give them that target. I've noticed that too.
Yeah. And it's fun to also say, like, you know what? I am secure in these interactions. And yeah, I had an interaction where I was showing up as anxious, and that happens. And I think, like, okay, just look at the majority too. And I love pointing it out. People will come and they'll talk about something that happened, and they'll think like, oh, that was such an insecure way of dealing with it because I felt the fear. And I'm like, but wait, hold on. Like, the ending to your story is that, like, you set a boundary with mom, and then, like, all of a sudden these things got better and whatever else. And they're like, yeah, but I felt terrified. I'm like, yeah, but, like, you've never been able to do that before. Like, look at what you're doing. That's totally a secure type thing. And the follow-up question is, will it be easier next time? And the answer is always yes. It'll of course be easier. I've already done it once, setting that boundary or showing up in the way that I normally wouldn't. And so each time you kind of face that difficulty, face that fear, and move forward in a positive way, oh man, you're just adding layers to making it easier the next time.
This is so true. Your brain formation is so key in those experiences you have. I was talking to Dr. Leaf a couple of weeks ago. She's been here on our podcast too. And she talks extensively about how the experiences you have actually alter the way that your brain is structured. It changes the pathways. It does take repetition. Your brain is a learning machine that will only believe its experiences, not hypotheticals, right? Adam and Trevor and Andre can be talking on a podcast about how great it feels to feel secure, and you can do it. Just have those conversations. And everybody listening right now, they're sitting there going, well, that sounds nice. And then their brain says, let's never do that. That will get us killed. Don't ever try to have these conversations with anyone because they will leave me, right? But when you go out and have a conversation with a human being for the first time and they receive you and accept you, when you face that fear, your brain learns, oh, there are variables. There's times where it works. And the more that you track that in and desensitize that fear, the more your brain says, wow, not only is this not bad, it feels pretty good. That first 3 months is removing the fear process so that limits you. The additional 3 months, as you said, like in that beautiful 4-month window, now it feels good. Now I'm kind of excited to have this conversation with my boyfriend. Now I kind of want to tell my girlfriend how I feel. Now I want to talk to my wife and fix this because it's going to, on the other side of that is joy. That's where we find that secure connection. Anticipating the joy is a great marker for remade secure.
Yeah. So you transform the field of attachment from the perspective of like breaking down each type into 2. Let's come back to the anxious type. And then what are the 2 subtypes that you actually define? Because I'm very curious, Trevor. Adam does have a great way of splitting that, but that's a novel way. So I'd love to hear your feedback as that expert as well.
I'd love to hear your feedback, Trevor. So
I'm excited.
Thank you. Yeah, I've split the anxious attachment style into 2. And it's largely driven by the victim mentality. Okay. The victim mentality determines which side of the spectrum you tend to fall on. And this is a spectrum. On one side is somebody with no victim mentality at all. They're what we call nurturing anxious. They understand what it's like to not feel loved, and they genuinely want others to feel loved. When a problem spikes up, they don't go into, well, I've done this for you and this for you, and you owe me. They go, you know what? I must not have done enough to care for you. This is my fault. I'm going to help. They do tend into the classic codependence, but never with resentment. They almost never have a level of resentment in there. It's always defaulting back to a very ethical, but very outward focused giving mentality. Still very anxious, but compassion, love, nurturing. As that person though, or as individuals may accumulate more damage, or as they go down that spectrum, it's more and more of a don't you realize what I've done for you? It's more of a transactionality. I can never speak my things because I'm not good enough, but look, I've done 50 points worth of things for you. You can at least return 1 point of love to me. And when they don't, if they start to develop power, I call this toxic anxious over here on this side, is I am seizing control of our relationship by doing nice things for you. You owe me. This is nice guy syndrome. Dr. Robert Glover, no more nice guy. He's my mentor. He was for many years. Wonderful man, but he talks about the secret contracts. He talks about the nice guy flare-ups of now you owe me and I will do A, B, and C. It's when the nice guy ceases to be nice, and I think that's one big reason a lot of women shy away from nice guys, because they know that behavior is not able to be sustained, and eventually the piper comes a calling and the bill comes due, and that's where we see the toxic anxious side really break out, and they are so distinct in how they operate. That's how I have broken that down. Is that making sense to you? What's your thoughts there?
Yeah, totally. Especially the piece of the relating it back to kind of where our conversation started, which is the signals of safety in that confidence or the lack thereof. And, I can't remember the exact words. I feel like I've heard Jordan Peterson talk about this specifically, just like the danger of, an insecure, resentful man. Like in the beginning, that's the guy who seems like the nicest, right? People pleaser, very kind. And I think that's when, the phrase like nice guys finish last, or like, that kind of concept. As a historically a nice guy, right? I've always been like, what the heck? I hate that. Like, what are you talking about? Nice guys are good. Like, I'm the good guy. Can't you see? And even in that, you can hear a little bit of the victim calling out, like, come on, see me for who I am. But also, yeah, that's the guy who maybe, or gal who holds some sort of expectation. Like you said, it becomes transactional. And it might not be that way in the beginning because it's not consciously that way in the beginning. It's just, I'm loving and I'm loving and I'm loving and I see myself as a loving person, which is true. But in a way, you're a deceptive and a transactional person, or at least you're behaving that way. Not to define somebody wholly by any kind of trait, but like, yeah, it's like the deception of I'm going to pretend to be everything you want and give you everything in the world, but I'm doing it on a transactional basis. I made a contract that you're not aware of. Right? It's a one-way contract that exists in my head, or a two-way contract, but it's truly only one way because it only exists in my head. And when you breach that contract, I'm gonna be really upset with you. But yeah, I think it's interesting the split. For you, I'm curious, the utility of splitting the anxious attachment into two. Do you what has been the benefit or the purpose of these two
I
categories?
love that question. It's twofold. One is when anxiously attached people come in, they've often been demonized as you're just a nice guy, you're going to do mean, awful things. And a lot of men are actually anxiously attached men are more like yourself of, look, I would never hurt anybody. I don't turn into that sort of like a werewolf monster and start and transactioning with people and yelling at people. So there are a lot of anxiously attached men who don't fit into that mold like that. So they are so much more nurturing, so much more compassionate, so much more ethical. I wanted to free them from some of the demonization that was happening, number one. And number two, we also needed to call out anxiously attached people who are doing that. Because when I got online and started talking about attachment, what I found was everyone wants to whip the avoidant people. You're the scum of the earth. You're the evil people. And it's because all the anxious people want to learn. The avoidant people are off in the corner making money is what they're actually doing. They're not on YouTube or on Instagram learning about attachment. So it's popular to beat up the avoidant people. I needed a way to be able to call out the actual damaging anxious behaviors that didn't actually map onto all people, but show how it's not cute or adorable. It's not cute when a man acts this way. It's not reliable. It's not loving. It can be very toxic. And if you dive into that victim mentality, here's where you go. However, you can still have anxious tendencies and be over here in this category. When we divided it like that, all of a sudden, avoidant men were able to say, Wow, that makes sense. I actually like these elements of nurturing anxious women. I wish they weren't so anxious. But the ones who are over here with the victim mentality, you're right. That is a problem. And then I can say, yes, but can I talk to you about why they're feeling that victim mentality and how your behavior is contributing to it? And they go, okay, I'm listening, right? Because you've now made an accommodation for the avoidant people to understand the other side. I had to split the avoidant side for the same reason so that we could make that distinction.
Well, and that's I think, speaking of humor, where we kind of started this, that's where the power of humor can come in too. Is I've done a video of day in the life of the anxious attachment too, and there's ridiculous things that like my wife is acting out that's totally calling out the anxious. And what I found in the comments wasn't a lot of anger. There wasn't a lot of like anger, like how dare you call us out and this and that, which is, I can get some of that, that like sometimes you call the carpet with a bit of accountability, the anxious, they may feel hurt and they may feel threatened and they may show up with their digital pitchforks and torches ready to get you. But what I found is that they were like, oh man, I feel like you're calling me out, but it was like with like laughy faces and those kinds of things. And it's like presenting that in a way that's like, hey, listen, this is something you do, but it isn't necessarily defining who you are. And yes, it's problematic and we need to look at that. But like, we know that you're not just like this bad person, or that somehow it defines you, which is another element of the attachment styles. There's a lot of times shame, right? Especially as you become aware, you might just feel shame in general about yourself, like I'm not good enough narrative. But then you become aware of all these issues and you're like, holy cow, I'm really not good enough. Look at all this stuff I'm doing. I'm a crazy person. It's like, no. Rein that back in. You're a hurt person who's trying to protect themselves in a way that's just not very efficient. It's not very helpful. So let's just change the nature of the protection, change the nature of the fear. So I love that idea of splitting them. That makes sense. The utility of being able to separate while also keeping people accountable on what they can do different.
It also gives them a target. Instead of, okay, you're anxious, you must become secure. It's, well, hey, you know what? You're on the toxic side of anxious. I'm going to be honest with you. However, if we make this shift, all we have to do is cut the victim mentality. Look how you grow. You are nurturing anxious over here. That's an easier target than secure. And once you're there, now it's just having more direct conversation to dive into Remade secure. So now there's even more steps that are easier to achieve. Let's make this staircase so much simpler to climb. It's an escalator for you. Just step on once and we'll carry you to the top. It makes it so much more digestible for anxious people and avoidant people when they come in on their side with their split too.
When it comes to this anxious and avoidant dance, this has probably been the hardest hitting subject we've probably ever done. I think so far there's just so many people come out and say, I'm anxious, I'm avoidant, and we just gravitate to each other like mystically. There's this like this is like the fifth force of the universe, is the desire for the anxious and avoidant couple to find each other and then leave. What exactly is happening here? Why does this happen? And what is it that anxious people really see in avoidant people?
Yeah. Well, I'll give you a few answers because like you said, it's one of the mysteries of the universe, right?
Truly.
To think that we have all of the answers. I'm never the guy who thinks he has all the answers, but I got maybe a few of them. And one of them is there may be what I call running the level again. Like if you're playing, I'm not much of a gamer, but if I was playing a video game and the boss kills you at the end of the level and you're like, oh man, I want to try again. There's kind of a part of our brain that's always trying again. So maybe you're trying to replicate a relationship that you had early on in life. Maybe it's that, you're anxiously attached female, always had a hard time attaching with dad because he was emotionally avoidant. He was in the avoidant camp. And so it's this pursuit of earning love like dads because you never got love like dads. And so you're just drawn to guys like that. Another reason could be that if you're anxious, then you probably don't feel chosen. You don't feel like you're good enough. You feel like a little bit defective. And sometimes the guy or the girl who seems to be maybe a little bit more aloof, a little bit more put together, a little bit more stoic, independent, they seem like the pinnacle, the prize to be had, because if they choose you, then oh my goodness, then that must mean that you're good enough. Like they are the hard one to get. And so if they choose you, then oh my goodness, it's clear, it's solidified, write it in stone. I am enough. And so I think those are two of the drivers that can move somebody from an anxious standpoint. And I mean, there's like so much beneath each of those, right? We could talk forever about just that. But I think those are two of the factors that could have somebody drawn towards an avoidant amongst a big list. And I guess I'll pause to avoid just taking up too much space here. But I think that's a good place to start.
And I'll add to that is we often pitch it as, well, why do anxious people go to avoidant people? But I think we can also pitch it into, why do anxious people avoid secure people? If you, Andre, you're a money, business, finance guy, you probably know more than I do about casinos and stuff like that, I'd imagine.
I try to stay out.
Well, you stay out, but you probably learn about them, right? Right?
Sure.
It's a place to spend money. We know that when somebody goes into a casino, if they have a gambling addiction and they go up to a slot machine and they hit the button and it just instantly loses, hit the button, loses, hit the button, loses, they say, bad machine, and they walk away. They have no function with that, but they go look for one that does, right? If you're anxiously attached and you're going on dates or talking to people and you need a hit, you're looking for a hit, but then you want to see a hit that's going to continue. Secure people don't play that game. They don't give you oxytocin right up front. They delay that actually on purpose because they don't want to bond. They have conversations with you that are more intrusive and more pointed, and they want to get to know you as a person, which to an anxious person is death, because I'm the scum of the earth. No one needs to know me. If you know enough about me, you'll leave me. So I can't answer these questions. So it feels abrasive and there's no payout. It's them walking up to slot machines and hitting 3 or 4 or 5 and see which one gives them a payout. Then that's the one they fixate on. So they are looking for people that would give them a payout quickly, which is not secure people. It's going to be avoidant people or disorganized people who are both going to break their hearts eventually, because that's why they have to pay out that early, is because of what's going to happen next.
I'll add on, if we're going that direction, which is, I love that. Like, why do you avoid secure people? Another is that sometimes the anxious will, it's kind of a mixed bag. They will look for a fixer-upper, meaning they'll look for somebody who will need them, meaning somebody who has some sort of emotional wounding, somebody who has chaos in their life, a person that's kind of becoming their little project, because the idea is that if I'm not lovable, then at least I can be valuable. And if I'm valuable, then again, we kind of circle back around to the controlling the outcomes. Then I get to control this situation, meaning you're always coming back to me. I am your oasis. I am your source of water. And so therefore you can come back to me. And so naturally, when you start to get close to a person who's secure, potentially, it's uncomfortable. It's like, wait, you don't need me like I need you, and I need you to need me. And that need me state is convoluted with love. Like, no, therefore I love you more because I need you, but you don't need me to survive. And so therefore you don't love me as much. And again, that's even almost overlapping into the victim mentality. Like, oh, you're not as loving. And I'm putting myself as this kind of like on this pedestal in the relationship. Like, I'm the most loving person here because I need you, and it's uncomfortable. And so I think that's another reason, is that when you're not in a place of codependency, then you feel like you lack the control that you need if you're an anxiously attached person.
They need you. I had a female client I was talking to actually just this morning, and she said, Adam, I just feel like there are no secure men. I don't even know where they are. And I said, well, that's because you pick up all of your strays from the animal shelter for dogs that are missing legs. If you go to a shelter for dogs that are missing legs, you will think every dog on the planet comes pre-made with 3 legs. And the more anxious you are, the more legs that dog needs to be missing, to the point that, the dog has 0 legs and you carry it around in a little baby satchel all day long. The more anxious you are, the more needs they have to have, so they can't leave you.
There's something that you said that was interesting, right? If you don't need me, you don't love me as much. And there seems to be a consistent pattern, an attachment pattern that anxious people have, which is this comparison of, do you love me as much as I love you, and vice versa? Like, there seems to be this magic number, like, a measure of some sorts, which is either your love or capacity to love. And I've always been curious about that. What is that?
Oh, well, if we want to get biochemical first, I'll jump in. They are tracking the other person's oxytocin level. Is largely what they're doing. Oxytocin and vasopressin, actually both, but largely oxytocin. We know that when somebody has high levels of oxytocin, and we've done experiments on this where they take a group of fathers and they squeeze oxytocin spray up their nose, and they measure how affectionate and intimate they are with their children afterward. And the rates increase largely. So we know that oxytocin makes a person outwardly more affectionate, more genuine, more generous. We call it spontaneous displays of affection, romantic attachment, all of those. The more oxytocin a person has, the more they will demonstrate affection. Now, oxytocin means that sense of belonging, that sense of connection. Most anxiously attached people aren't traveling with a laboratory to swab your saliva and then scan it and say, you have 375 points of oxytocin for me. They say, are you thinking of me? Are you texting me back quickly? Are you using heart emojis or just text? Are you using periods at the end, or were you so overflowing with emotion that you didn't use punctuation? That would be great. The period is very harsh, right? I've learned with Gen Z, if you put a period on the end, it means you're angry at them, right? And they overinterpret to say, how many points of oxytocin do you have directed to me today? And if you have enough, then I'm safe. If you don't have enough, I have this emotional impermanence that your love for me has disappeared, and I need to now refill it with actions so your oxytocin goes higher, and then I'm temporarily safe until that wears out too. Then I'll have to do it again. It's this endless cycle of refill your oxytocin bucket and then measure it obsessively. That's what I have seen. Trevor, what are you seeing on your treasure? I treasure you. Trevor, on your side, what are you seeing?
I'm just thinking about the oxytocin spray, wondering if I can get my hands on some of that.
You're not the first to ask.
That's the number one take.
We're working on that product line. Yes.
They are working on that for a number of reasons. But really, we shouldn't need it, to be honest with you. We need the natural release through our relationship. Trevor, it's when you put your arms around your wife and she sighs and leans into you and relaxes into your embrace. And then you feel that warm sensation in your chest. Both of you are releasing a flood of oxytocin in that moment. It's just that most of us can't let go in that moment, or we don't get to that moment, or we're overthinking in that moment, and that blocks the receptor sites.
Yeah, originally is just what we're trying to figure out is this: if you don't need me, you don't love me as much mentality, right? So what exactly is going on there? Why does that appear? What's the actual pattern that's working?
Yeah. Yeah. It's just conflating different emotions, because an anxiously attached person, love and anxiety are very much interlocked. They're interwoven. It's almost as if they could confuse the two even, right? This longing, burning desire to be with you. I could call that passionate love, but really maybe it's just fear and anxiety. And if you're not seeing in the other person a reflection of what you experience, then you deem it as an invalid experience, meaning that's invalid. That's not love. Like, you have to be anxiously needing me, feeling like you couldn't survive without me. All of these songs and books and all this over romanticized stuff in literature tells me that that's how it's supposed to be. I think that's also an influence, right? Like, it's pretty rare to find a song that's not pretty highly codependent in its construction, right? I watched it was horrible. I watched the Twilight series with the vampires and the werewolves recently with my wife. I've never seen it, but I was like, what's the hype about? We're watching this. And I was like mad the whole time. I was like, this is horrible. Like, she's like gonna go kill herself because the vampire guy doesn't like want her or something. Like, what are we teaching these kids? Like, I was outraged. But you can see it there, obviously, right? The most popular books of those 2000s eras is based on this whole concept of, like, if I can't have you, then I must kill me. Like, I cannot survive. And so A, it's being taught. B, you're experiencing that way in your own body if you're anxious. And if somebody isn't experiencing it, then they look like an alien. And you're like, no, you don't actually love me. And then that starts that negative cycle where they maybe even say that out loud, like, you don't care about me, you don't love me. They're diagnosing their partner, most likely avoidant, as this uncaring, unloving individual. And the avoidant's like, whoa, hold on. I'm experiencing this great level of rejection right now, where you're telling me that I'm like this broken person, that I'm not enough, and that, like, the way I'm doing feelings is wrong. Well, I've been told that my whole life. And how do I protect myself? Boom, I go shield up. I go into my turtle shell. You can't get me here. Oh man, and you know where that goes, right? The anxious person's all of a sudden triggered and they're fighting even harder to get in. And so you can see how, just that one concept of, you don't love me like I love you, sounds like a song lyric. I almost want to sing it as I say it. It can just create this nasty spiral.
Yeah. Yeah, I can definitely see that now when you said secure people don't want to bond initially. Like to an anxious person, how does that sound? You go, Trevor, guess what? We're hanging out, but I don't want to bond with you right away. How does that
Yeah.
translate to the anxious brain?
Even as you said it, I was like, oh, that does kind of feel a little bit uncomfortable, right? And then as Adam, you were continuing to talk, I was like, oh, but it's true. It's not about like bonding is a different word from like connect, right? They want to connect. I'm connecting with you. I'm understanding you as a human being, and I'm having some levels of, happiness and understanding and compassion for you, and maybe universal love that I give to like all human beings as soon as I get to know them a little bit. Sure, that's happening, but like, no, I'm not ready to like all of a sudden be like intimate with you or very close to you in that way. I I'm not a mistrusting person. I'm a trusting person, but I need to build that trust over time. And so it's very true. And there's that difference, I think, and maybe even the wording. And you could tell me if you feel like this is fair, is to say, yes, they're looking to connect, but they're not looking to bond. And the bonding is where the lack of bonding is where the anxious might feel a wall.
That's 100% it. It's bonding is an investment. Connection is curiosity and learning and gathering information. I wouldn't go on the stock market with cash in hand and just start throwing money at stocks with my eyes closed, right? You learn, you digest, you understand trends, and the ones that are trustworthy and healthy and begin growing and show returns. Well, that sounds pretty interesting. I'd like to learn more and start beginning investing a little bit. If that investment does well, I'm happy to invest more, right? We don't walk into relationships that way. You need to be connecting, learning, and growing, and you bond over time as trust is proven. That's exactly the system.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, gentlemen. This was an awesome dive in
It was.
into anxious attachment and just everything about it. So, Trevor, where can we find you to learn a bit more about this deep dive that you clearly have so much experience with in terms of how an anxious brain works and how to make it secure?
Yeah, great. So typically most people find me like on Instagram. That's like the number one place usually. My handles everywhere are the same. It's just The Art of Healing by Trevor. And or you can go to our website, theartofhealingbytrevor.com. And if someone's like, oh, this was helpful, what could I take next? I say, speaking of like building trust, I always say this: if you meet anybody, quote online in a podcast, like build trust with them. The first interaction is this one. The second one can be anything else that's also free. Like jump in and there's a free training or a free seminar that kind of goes more in depth on like the essential pieces that you're probably missing if you're doing like books and podcasts and therapy. Uh, what pieces you need and like how to fill them into your process. And it's called From Anxious to Secure. It's like a little 40-minute workshop. You can go check that out. There's a lot of free stuff that we share there. So I'd say go check those things out first.
Very nice. Thank you, Trevor. Adam, where do we find you?
Yeah, I'll second that. I love your Instagram, by the way, Trevor. It's a
Oh,
lot of
yeah.
fun. I'm Adam. I'm Adam Lane Smith, the attachment specialist. You can find me and my team on adamlanesmith.com. We do have the free attachment assessment styles quiz on there where you can learn your attachment style. We have the attachment newsletter. We have a lot of things that you can get started with. My entire team is also on there if you need some direct help. Everything from self-paced programs up to, well, push you along programs, if that's what you're looking for too.
Yeah, well, thank you, gentlemen. This was really fun. I strongly encourage you that if you are either anxious or avoidant or both, or just secure and want to go have a laugh, go over to Trevor's Instagram. Really check it out. Just great content. We will link it below. But more than that, it's probably time to start thinking about why you're this way. And even more importantly, what are you going to do about it? Because if you don't do anything, as fun as Trevor's Instagram is, it's not going to really help you find a date or, build a family or actually have a secure life. So whenever you're ready, definitely jump into all of those resources and see what you're missing out on. This isn't so bad on the secure side, I can tell you. Right, Trevor?
Feels good, man. Feels real good.
There you go. Well, thank you for coming on, Trevor. It was awesome to have you. We'll look forward to maybe another time, another conversation. And in the meantime, yeah, keep doing what you're doing. And everybody else, like, subscribe, share. And thank you for listening to I Wish You Knew. We'll see you on the next one.